Most of us were raised with an invisible map of hierarchy embedded deep in our subconscious. It's not something we consciously chose. It's not even something we usually question. It's the idea that there's always something or someone above us. This could be parents, teachers, institutions, governments, spiritual figures, even abstract notions like society or God. From the moment we're born, this structure starts forming in the background of the mind. It becomes the scaffolding that our behaviors, fears, and expectations are built around. This isn't only a social structure, it's a neurological one. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between real authority and perceived authority. It only records repetition and emotional charge. So if you're told often enough that you are small, inexperienced, sinful, or unqualified, that message becomes the default operating system running beneath your awareness. Even when we grow up and intellectually reject those ideas, they continue to steer us from underneath. This is why dismantling hierarchical programming isn't just an intellectual process, it's a deep reorganization of how you hold yourself inside your own field. It's not about rebellion against authority. It's about dissolving the subtle conviction that you need an authority to validate your existence, your choices, or your progress. The subconscious mind runs most of our life, about 95% according to most researchers. So if that layer has been imprinted with hierarchy, the way we respond to life will always default towards submission or self-sabotage. You can notice it in small things, hesitating to speak your truth, over-apologizing, waiting for permission, or undercutting your own value in work or relationships. It's not because we lack confidence. It's because our internal program has a hierarchy built in, and we've been unconsciously placing ourselves at the bottom of it. Reprogramming this isn't a matter of positive thinking. It's about creating a new inner environment, one that doesn't constantly reinforce separation between you and your own source of intelligence. When I talk about source, I don't mean a distant divine being that we're all going to return to. I mean our own original current or source, the animating, individuated intelligence that entered or tethered a fragment of itself into this form before language, before conditioning. This is the part that's incorruptible, self-sustaining, and already whole. But the world we grow up in doesn't encourage us to operate from that center. Instead, it trains us to orient toward external validation systems, grades, approval, status, income, belonging, image. Over time, these signals replace inner guidance. They become the substitute compass. And that's when we start losing charge. Because every time we reach outward for confirmation, we extend energy away from our own core field. That's the real energy economy that no one teaches us about. It's not just about time or attention. It's about biofield coherence. Your field is like a subtle electromagnetic torus, constantly circulating energy and information. When you make choices aligned with integrity, discernment, and self-awareness, that torus strengthens and becomes more self-sustaining. But when you act from fear, guilt, or unworthiness, the field weakens and leaks energy. That leaking becomes the fuel for external systems, the hierarchies we unknowingly uphold. When you're constantly giving your energy away to worry, shame, or authority, you're sustaining the system's evolution instead of your own spiritual evolution. That's the inversion I'm talking about. Instead of the system existing to support the individual's evolution, the individual has been programmed to support the system. You can see this everywhere. Religions that preach your powerlessness, governments that frame freedom as dependence, medical models that treat symptoms instead of energy imbalance, industries built on insecurity. None of this requires conspiracy to operate. It only requires collective agreement. And collective agreement is simply the sum of many subconscious hierarchies that have never been questioned. The way out isn't destruction, it's reorientation. You don't have to fight these systems. You just stop feeding them. You begin to recognize that the real arena of evolution isn't external at all. It's the daily act of reintegrating your spirit back into your body, into your field, into your lived choices for the time that we are here. You can think of it as closing a circuit. Instead of scattering energy outward, you allow it to circulate through your own system, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, until you become self-generating. That's what it means to become a closed-loop being. When you start doing this, the body responds. The nervous system begins to stabilize. The need for external reassurance lessens. Anxiety quiets because you're no longer operating from dependency, but from coherence. This coherence isn't achieved by control. It's achieved by presence, by noticing the subtle ways hierarchy still operates in your thoughts. For example, when you defer to an expert without checking your intuition, when you shrink in the presence of someone you perceive as more spiritually advanced, when you give your creative power away by assuming that others know better. Every time you catch that reflex and choose to hold your own center instead, you dismantle a piece of the program. This doesn't happen overnight. I've been working on this for almost a decade. This programming is woven through language, posture, even how we breathe. But awareness starts to unravel it. A practical way to support that unraveling is to use the same tools that conditioned you, but consciously. For example, music. Music imprints the subconscious directly because it bypasses rational filters. It's emotional, rhythmic, immersive. So instead of letting music reinforce separation or longing, you can redirect it toward integration. When a song says, "I love you," or "I'm so happy you're in my life," you can let that message be a dialogue between your human self and your spiritual self. You become both the singer and the receiver. You are the beloved and the lover, the parent and the child, the creator and the created. That one simple reframing begins to dissolve the distance inside. Over time, the subconscious starts associating emotion with union rather than lack. Another method is through mindful speech. Every word we use either strengthens hierarchy or coherence. When we say, "I can't," or "I'm just," or "I don't know," you're unconsciously reinforcing a power dynamic that places authority outside of you. It's subtle, but the subconscious records those statements as commands. You can shift gently without self-criticism. Replace "I don't know" with "I'm learning." Replace "I hope" with "I intend." Replace "I can't" with "I choose not to right now." Those adjustments may seem small, but language is circuitry. It directs energy. When language aligns with sovereignty, the subconscious recalibrates accordingly. You can also observe this in posture and breathing. Hierarchical programming creates a physical pattern of contraction. The shoulders slump, the chest closes, your gaze drops. It's a physiological expression of less than. To reverse it, you don't need to force confidence, you just open the structure. Breathe evenly. Let the spine lengthen. Let the head balance lightly. When the body reorganizes, the energy follows. It's not about pretending to be powerful. It's about no longer pretending to be powerless. The real spiritual path in my experience, isn't about ascending out of form, but about allowing more of your spirit to enter this form. That's the true integration of the higher self. When your own light begins to fill this interface or this vessel or this life incarnation and the metaphysical housing that you've done work to prepare for it. For that to happen, there has to be the stable metaphysical architecture. If the vessel is full of leaks, emotional instability, resentment, guilt, self-neglect, the spirit doesn't integrate fully. I believe that it hovers, it visits, it inspires, but it doesn't fully inhabit. This is why grounding, nutrition, rest, emotional honesty are all spiritual practices. They're how you signal to your own source that it's safe to dwell here, within yourself, in this life incarnation. And over time, as more of your spirit anchors, you start to experience direct guidance, not as voices or visions, but as knowing, quiet certainty, the kind of intuition that doesn't need to argue or seek any validation. This is how you know the hierarchy is dissolving. When you no longer look up or out for truth, you look within through your own coherence. At this point, life becomes less about progress and more about resonance. You stop trying to evolve as if evolution were a ladder and start realizing it's a frequency refinement process. You're not climbing anywhere, you're tuning. Every experience, joy, pain, boredom is a tuning opportunity. The question becomes, does this strengthen my coherence or weaken it? Is this draining my energy or self-circulating my energy? The more you live from this discernment, the less you depend on old structures. You don't have to reject them, they simply lose relevance. The system can only harvest from those who believe they need it. When you no longer need it, you're free to participate from choice, not dependency. This is true autonomy, not isolation, not defiance, just sovereign containment. From here, we begin to see how interconnected autonomy actually is. Because once you're no longer leaking energy, you can genuinely share without depletion. You become generative. You become the generative operative force, the God, G-O-D, delivered. Generative operative deliverance, however, G-O-D. Your presence uplifts others without effort because your field is coherent, and coherence naturally harmonizes whatever it touches. This is the opposite of hierarchy. It's resonance. Resonance doesn't require control or obedience. It operates through natural attraction and harmony. That's what all the ancient systems were originally pointing toward before we became institutionalized. The direct relationship between a coherent being and their unified field. The system doesn't know what to do with someone like this because a self-contained being can't be manipulated through fear or reward. You begin to move differently. You perceive differently. You no longer fit the frequency band of hierarchy and feed that system. And this is when more work begins. Not escaping the world, but walking through it as a coherent field of awareness. Every conversation, every task, every sensory experience becomes an opportunity to stay within your own circuitry, to generate, circulate, and refine your own energy while remaining open to your life experience. The process itself is the spiritual evolution. What dissolves along the way is the illusion that someone else holds the key to your advancement. The key is always in your own field of coherence, your own integrity, your own discernment, your own source, your own central fire. This is how you reclaim evolution from the system and return it to the spirit that animates you. And this is how we can play a part in dismantling the hierarchy through reinforcing its irrelevance. Thank you for listening. I look forward to reading your comments below, and take care.